Let's Pod This is sponsored by Roast Scout. Roast Scout is the best way to discover amazing, delicious coffee from some of the nation's best independent roasters. The people at Roast Scout believe that great coffee's everywhere, but since you can't be everywhere, you might miss out. So they created a way to bring that great coffee to you. They work with small batch roasters from around the country to ship fresh roasted whole bean coffee direct to your door each month. Now, other coffee subscription services typically send you just one brand of coffee month after month after month, and that's fine, but it's not great. I mean, what if there's something better out there? What if your coffee soulmate is there in some small town in the mountains just waiting for you to find it? Roast Scout delivers a new bag of coffee to you from a different roaster every single month. Sign up today at roastscout.com/letsfixthis to get $5 off your first month. Roast Scout. Discover remarkable coffee. Hey everyone, and welcome to Let's Pod This. My name is Andy Moore. I'm here with Scott Melson. Hello, Scott.
What's up, man?
How are you?
I'm great, dude. How are you?
It's only been like 2 days since we recorded the last episode.
That's true.
All right, it's been a eventful week already on Monday.
Right.
Were you on Twitter today very much?
I spent more time than usual on Twitter today.
Really, man, it was a dumpster fire today.
Yeah, there was. Yeah,
Federal stuff with Kavanaugh and all, like our country is having to come to terms with some very difficult things.
yeah,
And people have done some bad stuff.
yes,
It sounds like.
yes,
Some of it's being found out, some of it's not.
yeah,
Listen, if you've done anything that was potentially bad, just come clean.
yeah,
I did see someone that said, wouldn't it be nice if one of these times it comes out that someone did something, someone allegedly did something very bad
right.
20, 30 years ago, and the response, instead of saying, I didn't do it, is like, you know what?
I fucked it up.
Right. I was 17
Sorry.
and and it was not okay. And I have been riddled with guilt about this for a long time. And I want to apologize. And like, I'm a different person now. And I want to make amends, and I want to help other people be better.
Yeah,
What a refreshing outcome that might be.
yeah. I don't see that happening.
Well, maybe.
but we can dream.
Well, change starts with everyone, right?
That's true.
All right, so 3 quick announcements, and then we're going to get to the meat of the episode, which is going to be just a quick recap of the Oklahoman's Gubernatorial Forum debate thing.
Yeah, that's right. There was a debate tonight. You guys didn't even know that, did you?
They might not have. That's why we're doing this. So, real quick, our 3 announcements. First, this Friday, September 28th, Freedom of Information Oklahoma is hosting an event called Open Conversations. And this is a speaker series. The first speaker is Chase Cook, who is a reporter at the Capital Gazette newspaper, who was there when the shooting happened several months ago in his newsroom. And he is a alum of the OU Gaylord College of Journalism. He's going to be here speaking. Tickets are available online at foioklahoma.org. It should be a really interesting event. There's dinner, maybe some awards, and then Mr. Cook's going to speak. I will be there. Secondly, on October 7th, that's in just like a week away, a week and 2 weeks away,
Yeah.
is Open Streets on the south side of Oklahoma City. We'll be there with our table doing voter registration. Scott, we got a new tablecloth in the mail today. It's one of those form-fitted ones.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Looking sleek.
That's so exciting.
We're going to be there doing voter registration, which is important because you have to be registered to vote by October 12th if you want to vote in the election this November. And you do. I'm telling you do. And you're probably already registered if you're listening to this, but ask your friends, ask your family, ask your coworkers. Just be like, hey, is everyone here registered to vote? If not, offer to help. Just tell them to go online and do it, and you can mail it in. All right, and then thirdly, as a reminder, November 6th on Election Day, we are having a big honkin' watch party at the Tower Theater on 23rd Street.
You really don't want to miss it.
It's going to be exceptional.
Yeah, you want it. This is the place that you want to be.
Hell, the mayor's going to be there.
That's true.
We're in District 88, so Representative Jason Dunnington's going to be there. Some other guests.
We get pretty solid
live
lineup.
live music. JB Williams is going to be there. He's going to be a guest, and he's going to perform.
What's the cost of admission, Andy?
It's free.
What?
That's right.
How about
no money?
How about the food? What does food cost?
Food is free.
Now that can't be right. Free food and free admission?
That's right, because we're doing this for the people. Now, this is a fundraiser. If you would like to donate and help us do this, you're welcome to. We'd love that. We'll have some swag available for purchase, drinks, koozies, whatnot. Please come out, though. It's really going to be fun. Scott and I are going to be there, and we're going to be giving live election updates all night long. Think The Tonight Show meets Meet the Press, meets election coverage, meets concert. I don't know.
But better than all of those things.
Right. Put them all together, icing on top, and a cherry.
That's right.
Do the funky chicken.
It's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome.
All right. Well, let's get to the meat of our episode here. That's right, Scott. Tonight we're going to discuss the gubernatorial debate between Republican candidate Kevin Stitt and Democratic candidate Drew Edmondson. Scott, you and I watched it together just downstairs in your living room. What's your top line hot takeaway?
So I would say there's two things. I guess for me, one, Kevin Stitt. I think the big things I learned about him tonight, or I shouldn't say learned, that confirmed. One, he is trying hard to play the outsider, not politician, businessman with experience who's going to come in and kind of turn the state around.
Run the state like a business.
Which sounds, I think he delivers that. I think he delivers that talking point well. For me, it was not backed up really by any specifics at all about how he plans to do that. Lots of, I have plans to do things, but no details on how he's going to accomplish those plans other than just the force of his leadership.
So I asked you this while we were watching it. As someone who is a openly registered Democrat, do you feel like you're coming at this from a position of bias?
I'm sure I am.
That's fair.
I'm sure, I'm sure I am. I'm really trying hard not to.
I have some Democratic friends that have met Mr. Stitt and listened to some of his policies when he actually got into some details, and they said it was not as scary as they had been led to believe.
Yeah, and I didn't come away from tonight angry at Kevin Stitt or if he's elected that means the end for Oklahoma or something like that. Mm-hmm. It was just more, okay, you said you want to do this, but declined to say how, and you said you want to do this and declined to say how.
Is that just smart politics, though?
I mean, I think that's a great point, and it can be smart politics. But the reason that I have skepticism about it from somebody like Mr. Stitt is that he's never worked in public service before, right? And he made the point tonight that taking over the state government of Oklahoma with its $20 billion budget is like running a top 150 Fortune 500 company. And
I mean, just Fortune 150.
Yeah, right. Like a Fortune 150 company. And okay, I guess in terms of the balance sheet, maybe that's true. But do you think that a Fortune 150 company would hire somebody to be their CEO who's never had anything like that experience before?
Ah, right. Fair point.
Right?
Also,
I know Kevin Stitt's a businessman, and he's got a business that's in 41 states. It employs about 1,200 people. I think a lot of Fortune 150 companies employ tens of thousands of people across multiple nations and continents. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that there aren't skills that are translatable, but it's a completely different beast. And then when you add into that it's not the private sector. You can't just hire and fire people on a whim the way that you can in the private sector.
Well, and so that came up in the conversation where Stitt, I thought, was most interesting. We'll talk about him first, I guess, since we're into it now. I felt like it was interesting that he, on several occasions, said that he wanted more power, as he wanted the governor to have more power, but it was about him, obviously, because he's running for governor, which is different because Oklahoma has a pretty weak governorship as it is. Most of the powers with the legislature. So he said he plans to request authority to hire and fire agency heads, and he also thinks the governor should be able to nominate state Supreme Court justices, which is different than how it is right now, where there's a state judicial nominating committee that they come up with three, and give those 3 to the governor, and the governor picks one of the 3, right?
Right.
So it was interesting for a state where we distrust government historically because of scandals, and Edmondson highlighted the scandal about Supreme Court stuff that led to this judicial nominating committee.
Right.
And so Stitt's like, all right, well, it should be more efficient and consolidated. And on my end, I think that's interesting because it's, well, I agree and I disagree at the same time.
Yeah. No, I think, and it's funny because this actually brings up an exchange where, I question kind of what Edmondson's response was. So, they asked Edmondson, like, all right, Mr. Stitt is saying, like, hey, he wants to have the power to hire and fire. Like, there shouldn't be so many boards and commissions, and like the kind of concentration of power should be more centralized. And do you agree? And Edmondson said, well, I think it's served us well for a long time. And my immediate, I even wrote it down. I was like, has it? Like, has that kind of decentralized system served us well? Because we do have a government that's been rife with corruption. We've had, scandals in our distant history, our not so distant history, and our very recent history. Like, I'm not saying that we need to like completely revamp Oklahoma government and concentrate all the power at the governor's mansion, but at the same time, I don't know that I would agree with the assertion that having 400 boards and commissions that are appointed by some combination of the governor, the Senate pro tem, and the Speaker of the House, and other people, I don't know that I would say Oklahoma has been always well served by that super, super decentralized system.
Well, because checks and balances is a form of bureaucracy, and that inherently becomes more sluggish, right? And in some cases, it just depends on which side you're on which issue. Like, sometimes you want the governor to be able to jump in and just box somebody, like, get out. You screwed up, you're done, and they can't. And so sometimes you end up with someone bad that's still in office unless the board that's in charge of them acts, and they've got to wait. And, there's a system in place so that government moves slowly. And sometimes it's good that government moves slowly. It may be frustrating, but it's frustrating when we want something good to happen. But it's relieving when it's bad stuff that could roll out.
Right. And I think that's, and this, maybe this will change in the 2019, in 2019 after this election, but this is one of the things that I think Kevin Stitt might struggle with if he actually won, is he is used to running a company, and that's not the same as running a government. Moreover, he's used to running a private company. Not like, I would say that running a government is much more akin to running a publicly held company
with a board. Right? Yeah.
With a board, I don't know the ins and outs of Gateway Mortgage, so if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But my understanding is, I don't believe he has like a board that he has to report to, right?
He might have a board, but he's probably on it.
He talks about like being able to lay out a strategic vision and like inspire people and like move people to action. Well, at the end of the day, if you work for Kevin Stitt and he tries to move you to action and he can fire you, right? Mm-hmm. But he can't fire anyone who's elected to the House, and he can't fire anyone who's elected to the Senate, and he can't fire a lot of people that are on these boards. Edmondson made the point that, like, in response to a question about the scandal of the Department of Health, you would want to remove the leadership. And Chris Castile, the moderator, said, well, you can't do that. And Edmondson said, well, right, no, you can't fire them, but you interact with the board, and you make it clear to the board where you use your influence with the board to make it clear what you want. And you know what that's called? Politics. right? That's called politics.
Well, and that's very different than what we've seen for the last 8 years with Governor Fallon, who has been largely passive and kind of in the background on a lot of issues. And when she has tried to step out, I think there's, even for me, we kind of want the governor's voice to carry some weight with it.
Sure.
To be like, oh man, the governor weighed in on this.
Sure.
And in some ways I feel bad for her because that has not been the case. She's like, I think this is good or this is bad, and everyone kind of shrugs and moves on. And in some ways that has made governing difficult.
Yeah, I think that's true, but I don't think that anyone would say the same about David Boren or George Nye, right?
It was a different time.
Or Frank Keating, right? Like, I mean, you're right, it was a different time, but I also think that, you kind of grow to fill the role and make it what you want it to be.
It could be. Yeah.
And I don't know that Governor Fallon has done that.
Right. All right, let's shift and talk about Drew Edmondson then. how did you feel that he performed?
Yeah, I thought that he did well. My two big takeaways for him. So one, I feel like Edmondson is playing to the rural vote like hardcore.
Interesting.
Like I feel like he's going hard after trying to show rural Oklahomans that like he's one of them. And
He is.
He is, right. He is, but I think he's trying to demonstrate that because I
Sure.
think that there's maybe a lot of folks in rural Oklahoma who don't know that.
Right. Do you think that's a factor of age?
I think maybe it's a factor of age. I think it's a factor of maybe media consumption. I think it's a factor of, the Stick campaign is trying real hard to paint Edmondson with the career politician label, and I think that is inextricably linked to being like one of the two major metro areas.
Right. And so that was a question tonight from Chris Castile was, are you a career politician and a professional politician? Is that what he said?
Yeah, this is my favorite answer of the night.
And Drew was like, well, I don't know about that. I hope I'm a good one, and I guess we'll find out in November.
Right.
I would have said I'm a professional and a politician. Sometimes those correspond, sometimes they don't.
Sure.
But hey, to each their own.
Right.
I think it's interesting. So if elected, Edmondson would be one of, if not the oldest governor Oklahoma's ever had.
Yeah. He's like 64?
Yeah, or 71 or something.
Okay.
I don't remember how old exactly. But on a recent episode of How We Got Here, which is the podcast that Non-Doc and FKG Consulting do, they talked about this as well, that Oklahoma has historically elected governors that are like in their 30s. And even a lot of other elected officials are in their 20s, like late 20s, mid 30s, maybe early 40s.
Yeah.
And you think about who the vocal members of the legislature are. You've got, Dunnington and even Greg Treat, David Holt, AJ Griffin,
Josh Cockcroft,
like
Emily Virgin.
Yeah. Eccles, I think we're the same age. Even people who have now left, like Tess Teague and.
Did she leave?
Well, she didn't run for re-election. No, she got beat.
Yeah,
She got beat in the primary, yeah. But anyway, they're not there anymore is my point. But we got a lot of folks, and we have had a lot of new people anyway.
Yeah.
But there's not a whole lot of Bobby Cleveland's around anymore. No. And so I wonder what it is about Oklahoma that we kind of like. We like these. Well, and there's a difference there where we say, well, he's got a lot of potential.
Right.
But if it's a female, it's like, well, they got a lot to learn, and that's not fair.
Well, and I think part of it too is I don't know how many folks Edmondson's age run, right? Like,
that's true.
You know what I mean? Like, I think part of it is that people that run in Oklahoma tend to be on the young side anyway.
It takes a certain amount of energy to do it. Hats off to him. Also, I mean, to be fair, Linda Edmondson has enough energy for both of them, I think.
That's true.
She's an Energizer bunny.
But, like Drew had a couple of anecdotes. So Chris Castile asked him pretty directly about some of the commercials that ran against him immediately after the primary, calling him a career politician. And, Drew said, well, I mean, there's that one that showed him knocking down a barn. I thought it was not a real good commercial because, I mean, that was the worst barn I've ever seen. Didn't have a road leading up to it. Didn't have a road leading away from it. I mean, hell, if I was a farmer, I'd want that barn gone too. Like, just stuff, and just a few other places that I think he came across at least as
he was pretty affable,
maybe even a little bit folksy. Like, and I don't feel like it came across. It didn't come across forced. Like, I felt like he was very
right.
Like,
well, do you think that's experience as well?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, this is not his first time to run for public office.
No.
Not his first time to speak in front of an audience like this, where it is for Mr. Stitt. And I think, to me, that came through that, I wrote this down. I said I felt like Stitt came across as more kind of forceful in his responses. Yes. He was leaned in more, like leaning forward.
He was very green.
He appeared louder. That could have been a microphone issue, but he spoke very clearly, kind of forcefully, and spoke from a position of kind of idealism and like, this is what I want to do, and these are my ideals. Whereas Edmondson spoke from a position of, he was more quiet, a little maybe kind of contemplative or reflective, very methodical, and definitely spoke from his experience.
Yes.
I mean, referenced his time in the Navy, his experience in Vietnam, his experience as Attorney General, and the things that he had prosecuted.
Yeah.
And highlighted twice people he prosecuted of his own party.
Sure.
And I think that while that may bespeak a quote career politician, it also bespeaks an experience that Mr. Stitt, I think, felt like he had a hard time combating.
Yeah, I mean, I think just in terms of kind of the optics, again, watching it, you mentioned like Nixon, Kennedy. To me, Edmondson appeared much more relaxed and kind of
Right, yeah.
at ease.
Well, I mean, the comparison with the debate between Nixon and Kennedy is that Nixon was also sick that day and was like sweaty and had a fever.
But I don't know that this one. I mean, I don't know. Like if you listen to it, if you listen to it without watching it, maybe you'd have a different opinion. But I think we're not really in the business here of saying like who won or who lost. But I don't know that if you listened to it, the audio only, or listened to it and watched the video, that you would come away with a starkly different impression. Maybe you would.
And so I will say, if you are listening to us right now and you didn't get to see it, it's only about an hour long and it's on YouTube. I will put it, it's 57 minutes and 57 seconds, and I will embed it in our blog post that will go up whenever this podcast posts this week. So you can go in there and watch it. It's actually pretty interesting.
Yeah, I would say it's well worth it. I would say substantively, it was a fantastic debate, and I actually want to give a shout out to Chris Castile from the Oklahoman and News OK.
Hell of a job.
Oh, fantastic! Like that is to me like the way that he handled that tonight. Like that is how a debate should be moderated.
Well, and something said it was a forum more than a debate, and that's probably somewhat true because they didn't each respond to each question. My notes that I made about Chris were literally hell of a job, unflappable. And Chris has been around for a long time. Like he is a journalist. And I like that he gave context to the questions. So it's much more of a conversation than just like a question and answer. And it was almost a dialogue between each candidate, and they were all sitting pretty close. That's not a big stage. And he just kind of sat between them and was like, yeah, well, they said this. What do you say about that? And was like, no, well, that's not what you said before. And like, it was really, but just flat affect the whole time. It was really great.
Had absolute command of the facts.
He had probably, I don't know, 6 note cards there.
Oh, yeah.
And he was like flipping through them, and he knew what was next, and definitely
it was fantastic. The other thing I would say about Edmondson, my other takeaway from Edmondson was that, to me, and again, I think this gets to your point about experience, he was much more. He had a lot more command of policy details, like was able, I think, to succinctly say, Chris would say, like, what is your plan for this? And he'd say, my plan is to do this, and we're going to do it by X, Y, and Z. Like, that's what's going to happen. And I think, I think you mentioned about Stitt, like, it can be good politics to be kind of long on idealism and short on details. That could definitely be good politics. I think some people had that criticism of Barack Obama in 2008, and it served him well.
Hope and change.
Right? But at the same time, I think at the local level, folks that are engaged enough to watch a governor's debate at the local level that's not on TV and only being streamed online probably want more than I have a plan. Don't worry about it.
I got this.
I mean, you see what I'm saying? Like,
right.
Like, I think for
audience,
for this particular forum, I think having some more detail probably serves Edmondson well.
Right. So that's the other thing that we discussed while we're watching it is that Edmondson got quite a few laughs during the debate. Stitt got one that I noticed, and so it felt like Edmondson had a better rapport with the crowd. He like waved to his wife, and everyone applauded Linda as well. And some of that could have been Oklahoma City versus Tulsa, as we all know. That's a weird dynamic.
A little bit.
Do you think that it was probably also a more left-leaning crowd here in the Metro on a Monday night at the Art Museum, right? It's not at a school or somewhere else.
Sure.
Of people who are going to watch this at home, presumably you might have a more bipartisan viewership. Do you think that people at home, let's say Republicans or Libertarians or folks that are not Democrats at home, maybe on the fence, are watching this, and you pick up on this subtle feedback from the crowd that like it seemed like the crowd liked Edmondson more, and the like peer pressure is a thing.
Yeah, no, I think the
Wisdom of
essence
crowds.
of the essence of your question is like, does the fact that on screen Edmondson seemed more at ease with the crowd seemed more at ease with him.
Yeah, not just him,
like,
but the crowd's role in this.
Yeah, I think that absolutely matters. I mean, I think to me, if you were like dial testing this, right?
Yeah.
To me, I think Edmondson would have been a clear, like, quote unquote winner.
I mean, based on audience applause, Stitt got none.
Right.
Drew got several.
Right. So I think now, I also think that if you were kind of leaving that out of it and just looking at it like on points scored in terms of knowledge of government, knowledge of policy, I also think that Drew would have won. But I don't, I agree with your like premise. I think that interaction with the crowd like definitely matters.
I think, and I will say, I think the education vote is still going to be the big deal here because there's a lot of teachers that are sick of partisan politics and like, I don't cut the crap, man. Here's what we need. And I feel like Drew had a better answer to that where he was like, so Stitt was like, it's mostly about money. And I mean, he didn't say that, but he talked about teacher pay and starting pay and incentives to get teachers here. And Drew's opening statement was, if you think it's just about pay, then you weren't paying attention. And people applauded right then. To me, that line set the tone of the night. And I can't believe that Stitt didn't. I mean, that's, to me, it seems so obvious to capitalize on that.
Right.
And I get that there's a bajillion issues, and I don't know, maybe I'm paying attention to the Oklahoma Ed crowd more than he is because there's a lot of stuff you got to pay attention to if you're running for governor. But I feel like that alone is that once again, teachers will make the defining vote here.
Right. And the other thing that I think won't serve Stitt well in this is that the one policy that he seemed, the one kind of policy detail that he seemed most enthusiastic about tonight was related to state questions 780. Is that what it is? What the one the state question that allows districts to spend revenues that are in their
we discussed
building
in
fund.
Our last episode. Yeah.
Right. So that he actually brought that up at the beginning of the very first question of the night was, how would you fund education? Kevin Stitt is mostly local control. Like, let districts spend their dollars and let districts use this. And the reason to me that's kind of a, like,
he comes from a rich district.
Well, one, he comes from a rich district, and two, this is the point that Edmondson made. There are no teachers or administrators or school boards that are asking for that. So the two big, right? So the two,
also a fair point.
The two big things on education that Stitt made the point tonight was, one, it's all about salary, and Drew was like, if you think it's all about salary, you're not paying attention. And two, not only is it all about salary, but the way to fix that is by letting districts spend their ad valorem dollars differently, which is something that none of the districts are advocating for. They're all advocating for more money from the state government.
Well, and it would undoubtedly help some districts. Like he said, I mean, Jinx or Broken Arrow might benefit, but other districts like Godebo might not.
Right. I was a little confused. So the very last question of the night was on state questions, and it had to do with this one. And I apologize, I don't have the number offhand, but it's the one we discussed last year. And, Mr. Sitstead, like, yes, he's voting in favor of it. Let schools spend the money how they want. Edmondson says, my plan is to vote no. He said this several times throughout the night. Like, he would get asked his opinion. He's like, well, this is how I feel about it, but you could convince me otherwise, which I like. But he said, my plan is to vote no. Teachers don't support it. Administrators don't support it. It gives the legislature a free pass, kind of a get out of jail free card for not funding education adequately. And it would exacerbate the disparities between districts. And the very last comment of the night, Mr. Stitt seemed to take issue with that, saying that it wouldn't. And I don't understand how that's possible. So I feel like either he doesn't understand the question or I don't understand the question. And I don't know which one of us. What was your thought on that?
I had the same thought. I'm not sure who was right or wrong on that. I kind of missed it. And I was starting to prepare for the podcast and didn't listen entirely to that last question.
I was just like, why?
If I'm honest.
Like, why? Like it wouldn't exacerbate problems between districts, and I don't.
I think he's just trying to glaze over it.
That's all right. Cool.
All right. Well, so I've got two last questions for you.
Let me have it.
So the first one is, give me 3 words for each candidate that you would use to describe their performance in the debate tonight. 3 words for Stitt. Go. Do you need a word bank?
Maybe. Uncomfortable, rehearsed, but confident.
All right, that's good.
Yeah. Uncomfortable, but still confident. I feel like he was kind of both. I mean, does that make sense at all?
Yep, yeah. Totally. All right, so Edmondson, 3 words.
Relaxed. Also confident, for sure. And is poised too similar to relaxed?
No, that's different. Yeah. Good.
That's what I would.
Yeah.
That's what I would say for Edmondson.
That works. I just wanted your takeaway in 3 words. I like that I pressed you on that and you had a hard time with it.
That's a good question.
All right. My second question is, from watching the debate, what did you find most unexpected?
Let me scroll through my notes here because there was one, Kevin Stitt on mental health, wanting to reinstate $52.6 million that have been cut from the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services.
Mm-hmm.
Feeling like that we need to get those dollars back. So that was the first thing. The second thing I found from Kevin Stitt was wanting to get rid of 85% minimum sentences, wanting to get rid of the 3 strikes and you're out, particularly for drug offenses, and then wanting to significantly reform fees and court costs, because he correctly asserted that's a cycle that it gets, like, poor folks that get put into the criminal justice system, that creates a cycle of debt from which they can't escape, and they wind up incarcerated or re-incarcerated and out of the workforce. And that was surprising to me from Kevin Stitt. That's where he was on criminal justice reform. Not because I think he's pro putting people in prison, but I think that there's a large part of what would be considered his base that may not be palatable for.
Okay.
So that was surprising to me.
So a couple of Stitt policies were surprising to you then.
Yeah.
All right, great. Well, listeners, this will be our question of the week to you as well. If you watched the debate, and if you haven't, please go watch it first. What did you find most unexpected about the debate? Not good, not bad, just what was most unexpected. Scott, any final thoughts?
No, man. I think it was a good debate. I think it was informative. I think, certainly if you're one of the 6% undecided voters that we talked about in the poll last week, there's information in this debate tonight that can help you kind of make up your mind. I think, or at least start getting there. There's 2 candidates who have. I think if you force them to kind of delineate what they want Oklahoma to look like, you might see similar visions in terms of having a great education system and a great system of healthcare and significant, criminal justice reform, but substantial differences in how they want to get there.
That's true. And we will end on that note. It's the end of the episode. Don't forget to subscribe and rate Let's Pod This on Apple Podcasts because, well, that helps other folks discover and listen to us as well. We're also on Spotify, Stitcher, and really anywhere else you can find podcasts. You can connect with us on Twitter and Instagram at Let's Fix This OK. Scott is at C. Melson. I am at Andy OKC. Please like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Let's Fix This OK. Website, obviously, by now is letsfixthisok.org. Go there, sign up for the newsletter. I'm going to have one coming out here in the next few days. And I promise to not spam you like once a month. That's about all you get. You can make a donation on there as well. Sign up to sponsor a podcast episode. You can be a sponsor for our watch party event or just get the details. Tell your friends. Come on down. Have a great time with Scott and I and everybody else. Our podcast is edited and produced by Scott and me, and Let's Pod This is a member of the Mostly Harmless Media Network based right here in Oklahoma City. Our theme music is by the Sugar Free All-Stars. Let's Fix This is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization who strives to educate and equip all Oklahomans to engage with their government. We encourage you to get involved any way you can. Register, sign up, and vote. Decisions are made by those who show up. Have a great week, everybody.